Okay, and we are live.
Okay, I'll start out. I just want to welcome everyone and thank you for attending. Uh, Appreciate all the input, and I believe that this will be our fourth and our final meeting. I think um, we'll start with the chief as far as this document, a little bit about how you put it together and anything that you'd like to say to start out and go over it. Then what we'll do is I'll ask for input from everybody here or any questions that they have on the document. And then we'll go from there. So Chief,
Okay, good evening, everybody. I first want to thank everyone for being a part of this. Without your feedback and assistance, that wouldn't be possible. Even for the two individuals who came in later in the game, thank you once again for being a part of this. If you look at the final report or the draft rather that I created, uh, as you read through it, it's quite a bit, but you can see that we answer a lot of the issues that came up. uh, our procedural justice training, de-escalation, fair and impartial policing. We're kind of ahead of a game compared to a lot of other agencies in that. Our community engagement, what we do in the community, and until I sat down and started writing it down, I kind of forgot all the different things we do. We actually are very, very engaged within the community. As I said in previous meetings, COVID certainly put a damper on things, and we hope that as things get better, we'll get back out there and start engaging with people again and getting out into the community. As you see with our Blue Team and IA Pro program, that would be almost like an electronic version outside of discipline. It's almost like an electronic P file. One of the most important factors of that is the early intervention aspect of that. So for each officer, parameters are set. So if so many incidents happen within a certain amount of time, or certain incidents automatically trigger early intervention, it is sent to the patrol supervisor, who then takes a look into the what occurred and makes a decision from there. So it's actually a very nice system. Our use of force reports, I have in there about New York State accreditation, what's involved in that. It's a very complex process. Our body camera program is probably a little over a year now, but we've had car cameras for well over 10 years already. As far as training within the department, New York State requires 21. We're average between 30 to well over 40. And if you're in a specialized unit, you can go even a lot higher than that. Our crisis intervention program, over 70 of our officers are fully trained in it, and everyone has the basic course within it. Our behavioral health unit, we're one of the first ones around to have a social worker working with one of the officers going out and doing follow-up. It's a very, very busy task they have, and they've really helped a lot of people. Um, in looking at this report, I think it covers a lot of things. There are some areas that we need to tweak a little bit. Like I said, one of the things we have to do if you go into what some of the recommendations were, Reverend Rick had a nice recommendation, and when we go to domestic issues, to make referrals, if you will. And that's actually a very good program. It's something we could take a look at and maybe get Reverend Rick and maybe a couple other of the religious community or people with that kind of background together and just have it as an option for people. So when we go to a domestic, I'm talking, verbal problems or continuing problems, nothing that requires, an arrest or any kind of action like that. Maybe they can seek counseling, at least have it as an option. It's something different we haven't had. Um, the surveys, like I said, we haven't had a survey in ages. And like I said, I was a little disappointed with it. But in, talking to like Scott Zipp, and I think it was Kenny Young or maybe Danny Conyers brought up about using the schools as a way to get it out there. So I could see a yearly survey within the community, kind of with what's going on, like hot topics. And one of the main things we have to keep asking is how are they with service? Do they feel they're being served by the Cheektowaga Police Department? Because that's what we're here for. Um, the Chiefs Advisory Board, another area that we haven't had in well over 10 years. That is something that I'm actually looking forward to. And like I said, I'll be sending out an email to everyone tomorrow asking you if you want to be a part of it. And I think that's something that can really make change, help out, and just give a different perspective from everybody's point of view. We've got a vast area here represented within Western New York, within the community. I think that could be a great asset to us. As far as training, one of the issues with training, I think, is we have to get a little more, gender, racial, and religious sensitivity training. I think that's something we'll add into it. Actually, my training lieutenant is looking into some of that stuff right now, so that's something, the entire police department in time to come. At this point, I don't know if anyone, after reading the report, it's a little bit longer, but it's, nothing that bad. If anyone has any input or anything they'd like to see or anything that we didn't cover during these meetings added in there, I'd be more than happy to listen at this point.
Why don't we go right down the list here? Why don't we start with Mike Dermotich from the DA's office?
Sure.
Taking a look at this. What, this document or any other comments or suggestions or,
Yes, thank you. I did read through it, and I was very impressed by both the preparation of the document and also the contents of the document, showing that I think the Cheektowaga Police Department is well ahead of the curve. I think the object of this is to get police departments across the state and across the nation to reform. And I think that Cheektowaga is, like I said, well ahead of the curve. In particular, I noticed that the officer training is very comprehensive and actually addresses the issues that the hot topics that I think spurred this reform movement. And what also jumped out at me was that Cheektowaga has particular specifier units in place that deal with these specific issues, mainly the mental health outreach. You have specially trained officers in special units to a crisis intervention team. I noticed that officers are trained in de-escalating situations. These are all, I think, really important, and I think that you're doing a great job. The only negative thing that I could say about the whole thing, about the contents and the report itself, is just the lack of participation by the community in the survey. The numbers were just low with that. We've already touched on that last week, but really that's the only weak link that I see here.
Okay, thank you very much. Brooke, do you have any comments or anything to add from your perspective on this study or anything that we've done?
Yeah, I read through it as well, and I agree that I think it is very thorough, and it was, good to read to see that Cheektowaga is a bit ahead of the curve. I did have a couple questions, and I apologize if you guys already talked about it. I think I just wasn't in that meeting, but the behavioral health unit was the one that I had questions on. So it sounds like there's a behavioral health specialist that assists police officers and goes out with them on some calls. Is there a determination on what calls they go out on, and how many of those does the Cheektowaga Police Force have? Is there only one behavioral health specialist?
We have one mental health professional assigned to us 40 hours a week who works days, and with one officer, one of our community services officers, who's very involved and very interested in this aspect. So how it comes about is during the shift that they work would be days, Monday through Friday. Any calls of that sort of nature, they respond to on their own. What they also do is on calls that happen after those hours, like on afternoons or midnights, they would go do follow-up the next day. We had, just an example, we had an incident of a distraught individual threatening to harm himself with a shotgun in his residence, and the behavioral health specialist, along with the officer, responded and quickly gained a rapport with this individual. And after several hours, the individual did come out and, was taken by us to ECMC for assistance. And that was the whole purpose of it. It's not to arrest the individual. He's in a state of crisis. So we took him to ECMC for mental health assessment and treatment.
And then how also does that play in with the crisis intervention team? Like, so when the crisis intervention team goes out, does the behavioral health specialist go out with them?
The crisis intervention team would handle majority things after hours. That's why we have the officers on every shift. And then the follow-up would continue because the officers from the crisis intervention team would follow send a police report usually, or an email stating where they were, what happened, and what's going on for follow-up.
Okay. I think those were the only questions I had on it.
Okay. Kenny Young, any comments or questions on the study or anything?
I think the study was very thorough. The only thing that I can see that I can say, I don't know if it's pertaining to the study or not, but I think this group is just lacking another element of the community. Okay, and that would be the Muslim community and the Indian community. We don't have any people represented by that group, those groups. But as far as the paper, what was put on paper here, I think is a very good job, and I think Cheektowaga is always in front and above the curve, and they do a very good job. And I appreciate the police department.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. Dr. Giordino, anything that you have from looking at this study?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just echo what other people have said in terms of the quality of it and how thorough it is. And it's very clear that the department was able to respond to in a genuine way to all of the elements that needed to be included. So that's kudos to the department and to you, Chief, for already having those things in place. I guess my comment will be, it really goes beyond what we're doing here according to what the charge of this was. But I think after last summer in particular, when if people hear police reform and reinvention, they might anticipate that this was going to go a lot deeper into issues related to people of color and policing in those those communities. And there's some elements of it in this report, and you're doing what the report is asking you to do. But I guess that question of how do you continue, which I'm sure you're doing on various levels, but how do you continue to look at those issues and think about changes that need to be made, is one that still seems to be a little bit outstanding. I mean, I know there's the bias training, and again, there are lots of elements of it, but in terms of like, what are the big takeaways of this report? I just feel like there's and this is no fault of anyone here. This is like the way it was framed by the governor. I think there's a little disconnect between police reform and reinvention, and then really what's being asked of you to produce in this report. So that is, again, I fully endorse what's here and impressed by it, but I just think that those issues and those questions are going to keep coming up and need to continue to be addressed.
I agree with you, Doctor, on that. Like I said, our training only goes so far, and I think one of the elements of seeing if it's working, how it's working, our relations with the community is sometimes based on going out to the different community groups and talking, because people who generally attend community group meetings are people who aren't afraid to speak up and people who want to be involved. And that's a great avenue for us for feedback, if you will. I think that I'd probably actually come to you or actually to the board for assistance in the next survey that I would send out, and maybe have more questions like that. And I'd like input from everyone on that to try and maybe get like I said, if we could utilize the school systems to get it out to a larger audience. I think that if we ask more, get away from, what do you think about us, as to what do you see the problems are, and different things like that. And certainly like our relations, It's how we're perceived that's very important. And I think we can't always change somebody's perception of us, but we can get out and talk, and it might make them see us a little bit differently from what their preconceived notions are or something like that. So like I said, a survey, our complaints, we welcome complaints from the citizens, and you can access it right on our website. You can do it online, in person, by phone, whatever you want. We even go out to people's houses to talk, and that's one of the areas we can kind of gauge things too sometimes. Like I said, feedback is important, and like I said, we're 85,000 residents, and I think our community swells to maybe 200,000 during the workday, if you will, when the mall's in full swing and all the businesses are going. So it will be interesting to see. So like I said, I'm more than welcome to accepting any kind of input or ideas from anyone when we get the advisory board rolling. Thank you.
I think the main thing is, I think that all the things you brought up are, they're so true, but it's just that constant communication going back and forth when there's an issue, and, addressing small issues before they, get into bigger issues and they get legs and, this and that. But, just that constant feedback and constant communication with members of the community, Okay, Tom Mazer?
Hey, good evening. Everybody seems to have already said what I was thinking about. I do like the report. I think it's very thorough. I think we're going to have, as this pandemic lightens its grip on us, we're going to have more and more community policing efforts. And I think then we're going to finally get a little bit of a handle on what the people are feeling. But I truly believe in community policing, and I think that's going to be it in a nutshell. And then, this morning when I was out walking, I was just thinking, last week somebody had mentioned maybe we should use the schools to disseminate information, and that would be helpful. I've been with this department indirectly through my efforts as a council member, and many years ago, 20 years ago, you guys were ahead of the curve. And I think, that's very important. You did a yeoman's job on diversity training. This behavioral health thing is so big. And I was just wondering now, is there any possibility we could have, when we have to call on a social worker for behavioral health, do we have somebody that we access on a regular basis, or is it something we have to go through some other agency and they send somebody? Because it would seem to me that if somebody knows our environment, our town, and our population, they might be a better type of social worker for our concerns.
We've had this program for several years, and Sarah was the first behavioral health specialist, and she was assigned only to us. And Sarah has since moved on, and she's actually in working with Buffalo to get their program going. So now a gentleman by the name of Nick has been assigned to us for several months, and only us. So he's learning the town, he's learning the officers, he's learning our community, which is great, as opposed to calling a different person every time. So he knows the issues and he's learning them within the town of Cheektowaga. So we're already on that.
That's so wonderful, because otherwise, if you have to have a training curve it's disastrous. Good. I'm happy. I'm content here.
Okay, thank you. Officer Nazareth, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I guess I'm lucky I get to live all this, but when we go to training with other departments and some of the stuff we're doing, other departments were behind in it, or we were ahead of the curve in it. So, some of the stuff, like especially the mental health stuff that we're doing now, we've been doing it for a few years. Other departments are just starting to get that. But all the extra training we received in the mental health stuff prepared us to go to calls that, not that we were ill prepared, but we weren't prepared enough for, enough all the mental health stuff that's going on in the world today. we also in our department, we have a domestic violence advocate. I know that was noted in here. That's, something that I don't think every department has. And going back before all the stuff, of last summer happened, we were getting racial and bias training several years ago, long before, it hit the mainstream of every police department. So like I say, I'm lucky. Every day we get to deal with all this stuff. And like I say, I think as far as our department, I think we're ahead of a lot of departments in this area and maybe even a lot of departments in the country. So.
Okay. Mike Cohen, anything to add to this?
Well, I think reading through the document, I think I learned how little I actually knew about the department and the programs that exist within the department. For example, a lot of the things that have already been talked about, the community service unit or the school liaison program, behavioral health unit. I'll be honest, I didn't know about a lot of these programs, and my sense is that there's probably a lot of those in the community that don't know as well. So anyway, maybe the word can get out that these are part of the police department would be fantastic. One thing I would offer up, and Chief and I speak about it, I think a lot, is the gallery is a large vehicle that we could use to get the word out, whether it's meet and greets, and I know it's been used before for recruiting. People love, for example, if there was a canine visit, it just kind of brings the police department to the public, kind of shows that, hey, we're part of the community too. We're real people. So stuff like that, I think is pretty useful. And the Galleria is always available whenever needed by the department. Just want to throw that out there.
That's a very good thought, Mike. I know that we go there for job fairs and events like that, but maybe there's no reason not to go there, when we're just the only one there. And that way people can stop by and we can set up little presentations based on what we do and get it out in the community. That's a very good idea. Like I said, to get out there besides when there's another 40, 50 tables set up. Thank you for that offer.
Hey, Reverend Rick.
Yes, I do have a couple of things to say. I did talk to a few of my friends and my neighbors and everything else to try to get on to do the survey, and they said it was taken off of the website, so they couldn't do the survey. I did that this past week because only 94 out of a town of 85,000 did it, or something, whatever it is. The other thing, I think what you guys did as far as the paperwork and everything, I read it. Matter of fact, Rich, I said you did a good job, and then you told me, well, it's the chief who did it, and I told the chief you did a good job. I've been a resident of Cheektowaga since 1986, and one thing I've never complained about is the police force. And you guys have done a really good job, have done a good job, are doing a good job, and will even do a better job. One thing I do like to say, though, is down the line, as far as for the faith community, that down the line, if we do have another survey or whatever, and maybe some of the officers, I'd be willing to go with them, different churches, talk to the pastors, if we could leave some information there for them, or even maybe go to a service and explain. Sometimes the pastor will allow us to say, this is what's going on in our town, because there's so many people that you could reach through the churches, through the faith community. And then I think we're going to be, next time we have a survey, it's not going to be 94 people. It's going to be way over that. So I'm just, those are things I'm thinking about. I'd be more than happy to help you guys out in any way. And I'm looking forward to your email, because I am interested in helping you guys out with that, the Chiefs board, or whatever you want to do, whatever you want to call it.
Okay, thank you. We have somebody else too. They're on, alls I have is member. I don't know who, if there's somebody else on that is in the meeting. Lynn, do you know who else is on?
I don't know. It's a person who's phoning in. So whoever is phoning in, if you could let us know, just announce yourself, please. if the person who's in on the phone, I think the last digits may have been 129. They're calling in for the Zoom call. You could unmute yourself. I'm not sure, Mr. Chamberlain, if we can figure out who that is unless they unmute themselves. So it's probably one of our members. I have no phone number to match it up with, so I don't know who it is.
Okay, okay. Paul Hockwater, anything to add?
Not really much on the report. I did read the report. It was written well. I just hope we can get back to to the meetings, the neighborhood watch meetings. People were coming in, touring dispatch. Everyone wanted to know what we do back there in dispatch. I think that was important. The community come in, see what we do. So hopefully we can get back to doing all that. And I think you'll end up with a lot more people taking the next survey if you have more meetings and get together with people so they know what's going on.
Thanks for mentioning that, Paul. I kind of forgot about that in a way. Like I said, part of our community services is station tours. I mean, we sometimes average 3 a week. And another big aspect is ride-alongs. A lot of people love to go on a ride-along because you actually get to see what happens. You see a busy day, you see a quiet day, you see an in-between day. And that's something that we're actually looking forward to getting back into. The officers actually enjoy taking people on ride-alongs because vast majority of officers are very proud of the job they do, and they like to share it with people and talk to people, and they like answering questions. And I think that's a good firsthand knowledge for the community to see what actually happens in Cheektowaga. And I don't want to call it a day in the life of an officer, but something comparable to that.
Okay.
Sorry, Chief, can you hear me now?
Yes, somebody just came in.
Hello, Chief. It's Mayor Tom Ferrucci. I'm sorry I came in a little late.
No problem.
That's okay, Tom. What we've been talking about is we've been talking about this report that the chief did. Do you have any comments on it?
Yeah, he did a phenomenal job. And speaking of, for 1,300, I'm sorry a little late. I'm putting out my signs and knocking on doors, trying to run for mayor again for March 16th. I'm sorry a little late, but Chief does a phenomenal job for the village of Sloan, for our residents. Anytime we call, anytime we need something, they're first. They're right on it, and they do an unbelievable job. And I'm very proud of them. They do great. And I lived here my whole life, and I'm very proud of Chief and the reform and the prevention plan. He did a great job on it.
Thank you. You brought up a point that I think we sometimes forget, is when you said that, whenever you call, we come. And I think we have to make sure the community is aware of that. Like I said 100 times, that's who we work for, the community. And we're a full service agency, and I think the town's lucky to have that in some ways. We go out and we help people on, sometimes they don't seem like police related calls, but whenever anybody calls, we go out and we help them the best we can. Like I said, not always everybody's happy with the results, but we'll certainly give an effort, that's for sure.
100%, yes.
Okay. Is there any comments on the format of the Chiefs Advisory Board, or any questions on that or anything?
Nope.
Okay. The only thing that I just want to add here is, when you did the training for the VDI, that was from Vestalar, right, Chief?
No, I don't remember the name of the company off the top of my head.
Okay. I think that's who it was. But it was a private company. It's one of the premier private companies in the country that does this type of training. And where that ICAT training comes from is that comes from a place called the Police Executive Research Forum. The acronym for that is PERF. It's one of the think tanks in America on policing today, and all of your big city chiefs and commissioners are all members of it. The other one is the IACP, International Association of Chiefs of Police, but that's where that comes from, and the training that comes out of them is excellent. And the Police Executive Research Forum is also connected with the Department of Justice too, and has been so for a long, long time. And also the Office of Community Oriented Policing, which is out of the Justice Department. I do have contacts with the International Institute here in Buffalo that we regularly train with the Academy, and I have contacts with the LGBT community too, who does regular training. And I do have one contact with the Muslim community too. Part of the reason at the Academy, we use the International Institute up until we had the issues, of course, with COVID and that, but is they have a good overview of the entire immigrant and refugee community. And they don't just represent one, and they know what trends are and they know what issues are. And we're very fortunate to have them here in the Buffalo area. I don't know if anybody's familiar with them, but they've been around literally about 100 years. They're located down on Delaware Avenue. So that's really all I have, unless anybody else have any comments or suggestions. As a final thing, I just thank everybody for their participation again. And what's important in these particular times is what we do in dealing with each other and the things that we do in our community, and realizing what we have control over and what we don't have control over, and spending time where we can have the most beneficial effect, not trying to spend time where we can have little effect. So, with that, unless there's anything else, then the chief is reaching out to you, correct? Regarding
There's a couple closing things. Like I said, once again, thank you all for being a part of this. You'll receive an email tomorrow. As far as this draft, I'm going to place it on our website. If anyone in the community who's watching or by word of mouth wants to take a look at it, feel free. I have to thank my predecessors, though. I have to thank the chiefs who came before me, the captains, lieutenants, the sergeants, the detectives, the officers. This law enforcement, Cheektowaga Police is not just me. It's a group of men and women, dedicated to serving the community. It's also our support staff, our public safety dispatchers, our cell block attendants, court security. It's everyone. So I thank everyone, for making this happen. A lot of these things were done before I became chief. Some of them are newer. And like I said, our goal is to continue to enhance what we have. I thank you once again.
Okay, I thank everybody too. And you'll be hearing from the chief in the next day or so. So thank you.
Thank you. Good
All
night.
right, good night.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.